How's it going, class? It's your teacher, Option 1. I know it's been a long time since I've uploaded anything. Streaming has been pretty serious lately. Today we're going to talk about a new series I'm excited to launch, Umbrella Corps 101. A series featuring everything from tutorials, great kill feeds, amazing moments, and other exciting adventures. Before I get too far ahead, I want to give a special shout out to Adithi. Adithi has gone above and beyond to support my channel and the stream. Because of her that videos like these exist. Thank you to you. Today's subject in Umbrella Corps 101 is a kind of a preface. Why I'm excited for Umbrella Corps. First, we have to get the obvious stuff out of the way. There's been a huge amount of fan backlash over Umbrella Corps, mainly on YouTube videos. There's been a lot of people complaining about Umbrella Corps. We didn't want this. We want Resident Evil 2 remake. We want Outbreak File 3. This looks like crap. There's been a few really cool people that have taken a stance on the opposite. There's been some streamers and YouTubers who've had a chance to play the game and said, oh no, it's really pretty good. All the haters are going to be put to shame when this comes out, and it turns out to be a great game. There's also a lot of people saying that, well, I am a hardcore Resident Evil fan, but I'm okay with it because it's a spin-off and it doesn't really affect me or the series in any way. I'm drawn to this game for entirely different reasons. As a quick background, I've been around since the beginning of the very first Resident Evil on PlayStation 1 and Sega Saturn. I never got into those games. For some reason, those games always felt very clunky and archaic in a strange way. I just didn't like them. They seemed very difficult, obviously. I was a young kid at that time. But more than that, they just didn't seem to be my flair. It wasn't until Resident Evil 4 that I really got into the series. So you might say I'm not a true Resident Evil fan because I never really liked one of the isometric pre-rendered background Resident Evils. I was drawn to this game for a lot of other reasons. I think it was something about that it was just very unique, that it was an idea that maybe on the onset looks very mediocre or looks very Me Too in the shooter genre. To me, it stood out as something that Capcom was taking a real risk with the franchise, especially after the failure that was Raccoon City. I was also heavily drawn to the game for the idea that it was an e-sport attempt, that they were trying to maybe borrow from the idea of CS in this one life match. For those of you who don't know, the Japanese esports scene has been booming in the last year. Japan has steadily picked up on a few major titles very recently, Battlefield 4, Rainbow Six Siege, and esport cafes, esport tournaments are starting to pick up, whereas maybe 10 years ago, the only thing that was even notable was fighting games. There is a very big market, and I feel like Capcom Osaka really went hard on this one. When I started to pay a little bit closer attention to what the game was actually doing, I started to see that they had really put a lot of time and effort into making this a solid game. Of course, we'll never be able to know or say for certain until it's in our hands, but I have a feeling, just a vague whispering, that this may actually be something pretty good. The other obvious criticism we need to get out of the way is how it looks. A lot of people are being very clear that the game looks like garbage. Why is it Unity? Why is the FOV so bad? The people are so big on screen. Why is it so clunky looking? I don't yet know exactly how the game is going to play, so I can't make a determination, but I can say for a lot of reasons I like what I see, even though I see the same thing as everybody else. First of all, one of the biggest complaints you hear is the crouching or prone animation, and I've got to say, that doesn't really mean anything. Prone animations in most games are terrible. If you've ever played Battlefield 4, you know the weird wonky tuna fish flapping on the ground animation when you go from a run to a prone and back to a run again. So this animation doesn't look that bad. Also, I feel like there's a reason for all these things. I wonder if in a lot of ways the clunky controls, the strange FOV, and even the weird animations serve a purpose. Don't forget, this is a Resident Evil game. It's not necessarily just another shooter. It's supposed to retain the classic Resident Evil feel of claustrophobia. I feel that they've really tried hard to make it feel that claustrophobic. Does it work? I don't know. I will be honest and say at this moment it looks a little jankety. I feel like looking jankety is second to how it plays. If it plays good, if it's fun, I don't really care how it looks. Now, the things that I'm really excited for, I feel that the Capcom devs are very serious, and there are a lot of reasons why I say this. Things like how the crosshair shows your current ammo total. This is something unbelievably unique. The idea of a deep melee system. Even things like grenades having an active radius where you can see where they're going to explode. These are very simple design choices, but they strike me as being the design decisions of people who really want to make a solid game. There are lots of subtle hints. Maybe it would take too long to go over each one of them, but I definitely get the feeling that while on the surface this looks like a rather generic shooter, I think when you really look deeply, you'll notice that they've taken some time to make this game feel good. We'll have to wait and see. A second reason why I'm extremely excited, time to kill is somewhat high. This is not a Twitch shooter. This is not Battlefield 4 or Call of Duty. You have to shoot and you have to hit, which is something on its own excites me. I love games that have a higher time to kill. It prioritizes skill over aim. It says that just because I saw you first doesn't mean I got the kill. I could shoot you. You could theoretically turn around and shoot me back. If I'm going to shoot, I need to make sure the situation is right, and I need to make sure I'm going to hit you. The third reason why I'm super excited for Umbrella Corps, this is 3-on-3 team gameplay. When was the last time you played a 3-on-3 game? I can't even remember the last time. Games have been 5v5 or plus that for a long time now. 3v3 is such a unique space. 3v3 is so tight. You don't have any room for error, but you also have a lot more room for skill to shine. One skilled person has a lot less to fight against if the two people he or she is carrying. A very strong player can still come out on top. At the same time, two skilled teams of 3 will go back and forth very closely. I think it's a crazy great idea. Most of you guys know I'm a solo gamer, so finding another 2 solid people, while it may be difficult, it's a hell of a lot easier than finding another 4 or another 6 solid people. I think this game will really make skill shine out. If you're good at this game, it'll be clear. If you're bad at this game, it'll be clear. If you know how to work together with your team, it will be clear. If you don't, it will be clear. And that excites me on a level of competition I haven't felt in a long time. Which goes right into my next point. The fourth reason why I'm excited for Umbrella Corps is really geared for esports. Again, Japan is having kind of an esport boom right now, especially with things like the Capcom Pro Tour and ESL Japan. Myself, I enjoy staying up late to watch episodes of Topanga TV or Battlefield 4 tournaments. I've seen several of them. I'm excited for that because I feel like Capcom has really understood that there is a niche in this market, so why not take an existing franchise that everybody can know and love and make it into a kind of a team-based game? We're going to see things like weapon balance. We're going to see things like private matches and private lobbies, good netcode. We're going to see things like well-balanced game modes. All of this excites me. You don't have to be a tryhard. You don't have to be a competitive player to enjoy it, but if you do have even a hint of competitive nature in you, those things should excite you. There's probably 100 things I'm excited about it, but maybe the last main point of why I'm excited about Umbrella Corps, pistols. I love pistols. As you can see from some of the footage, there's been a ton of pistols showcased. There's been the Glock, the Beretta, the 93R. I thought I saw what looked like a Deagle, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was a Deagle. I just love games where you can play pistols. You get the hand shield when you're using a pistol, but anyway, before I talk too much about pistols, my point is that this is a game that has nuance. This is the one thing that any competitive game needs to be big. There needs to be enough deep, varied, and interesting modes of play to keep people interested. If it's just a kind of game where you pick the best gun and run straight forward at your enemies and win, people get bored with that. The idea that pistols becoming powerful, being a game mode of their own, leads to different styles of play. From what I can see, Umbrella Corps looks as though it's got a lot of nuance. Things like the zombie jammer being blown off, things like the spikes on your shoes that allow you to walk up walls. Seems as though there's a lot to this game, but not necessarily too much that you can't just pick up a gun and start shooting. Now we're going to talk about the negatives. Most of these can be overcome if the game is good. Simply put, if the game is fun and enjoyable, most of these don't even matter. These are still issues that might become rocks in the shoe, which will eventually cause the game to fail. Of course, the first one is bad mechanics. Look, if the game's mechanics are far too clunky to enjoy, if they're not solid enough to play consistently, the game's gonna go nowhere. If I shoot somebody enough times and there's no hit registration, the game's in the trash. If the game mechanics are sloppy, wonky, if it's too laggy, then the game's not going to do well. Considering that it's entirely multiplayer and online, it's not likely that these are things we have to worry about. The other issue is low population. This is slightly more of a worry when I go into this, especially as a Twitch streamer, is who's going to be playing it. The good news is the game's $30. That's half the price of a retail game. So there's a pretty good chance the servers are going to be full. Even Garden Warfare had full servers for a long time, and that was a game I think that cost $40 at launch. I don't exactly remember. If there's nobody playing the game, it just doesn't work as a game. No one's going to buy the game if there's nobody playing the game. And if there's nobody playing the game, there's not going to be anybody watching the game. And if there's not anybody watching the game, there's not going to be anybody buying the game, etc., ad infinitum. Basically, if the game is not good enough to keep people's attention for a long amount of time, it's going to fail. With a game that's primarily online, you have to keep people's attention, right? And if it can't do that, it fails. If it's a good game, people will play it. It will continue to sell. Servers servers will be continually full. I think that a potential problem could be the fact the game has too many modes. There are a lot of modes. Now, I know that after watching the trailers and watching some gameplay, this is part of a mixed mode. All these different random objective modes are part of one playlist, which is mixed mode. If they're not, if there are separate playlists for this sort of thing, that's going to be really hard to play. Games that have too many modes, especially games with lower player base, like downloadable shooters, they suffer when there's too many modes. First of all, you're splitting the core audience between ideals. If most people enjoy Team Deathmatch, if you try to get people to play Domination, it's going to be hard. You're going to have a small group of players who only really like Domination, and the Team Deathmatch players will miss out, and vice versa. This is not a huge issue if it's a good game, because there'll always be players in some of the lists. Multiplayer competitive games really need to focus with a couple of solid, well-designed modes instead of just having a ton of modes. Still, I like the idea of a mixed mode with all these crazy objectives. Another issue, and this one is more likely, the overemphasis on DLC. The game finally went up on PSN and Steam to pre-order, and already there's a special deluxe edition. It's $10 more over a $15 DLC, so you save $5, but already it's kind of like, really, this is everything that Capcom has taken flack for over the years. On-disc DLC, stuff that should ship with the game that comes extra at a cost. Again, the game is cheap enough that it's not that big of a deal, and honestly, I'm not really interested in paying for costumes that look like Leon and Chris. That's not a big deal. So to have it there in the future, if I ever actually wanted to pick it up, that's not offensive, but it's alarming. The trend in itself of having more DLC doesn't really work in a competitive shooter. DLC for competitive shooters have always split playlists. That means that when new DLC that comes out with new maps, new guns, new whatever, usually it's not compatible with original lists. So you now have a new playlist. You have the base maps, then you have the DLC maps, and now you've officially split your player base. You've got the group of players that have the DLC that can play both, and then you've got the people who haven't yet jumped to the DLC stuck on the original. Simply making more maps in the future free, that is if they ever come out with more maps, and keeping cosmetic DLC to be paid for, etc. That would be okay. It wouldn't be insulting. It's still a little bit sketchy. It's not a problem just yet. Altogether, I've listed some positives, some very intriguing reasons why I'm excited for Umbrella Corps. There are certainly more reasons than I chose to list here, and I'm sure as I do future videos, eventually as the game comes out, there'll be more things that make me excited. Or not. I may hate the game. We won't know until it launches for sure. I feel very strongly that there is a future in this game. I hope more level-headed people give this game a chance. That's it for today's class. We'll talk more as the game becomes closer to release. We'll talk about what we want to do with it on the stream, how future videos are going to go. I actually would like to turn this into a class. Hopefully we can get that far. I'm very excited. Thanks a lot, guys. Leave a comment, like, and subscribe, of course, yada yada. And definitely check out my Twitch channel if you're looking for footage of this. Thanks so much, guys.